I'd like to invite to the stage Martin Yu from E2 Open, who will be talking about cutting through the marketing hype of AI in the supply chain, which I think is certainly an important one at the moment. Do you want the...
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Martin from E2 Open. Actually, I spent the entire day yesterday explaining who is E2 Open, what we do. So I won't be doing that for the next 25 to 30 minutes. And I'm the sales director for Asia Pacific. But don't be worried, it won't be a sales pitch, I guarantee, for the next 30 minutes. And I see a lot of my IT vendor peers here. And today, in the next 25, 30 minutes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift and move to the opposite side of the table to tell in the buyer, in the IT buyer's point of view, how to cut through the marketing hype of AI, right? Because I think nowadays every IT vendor claims that we have the advanced AI, and it's confusing for the buyers, right? Okay. I'm going to start with yeah. So, I think I will go to start with the little known secret of AI, followed by what matters most in the supply chain AI, and deconstructing the AI terms and show some real life use cases, and finally some tips for the supply chain AI buyers. Okay, so this is one, So you see an incomplete sentence here. AI is completely depend on something, right? So what is the something? I think you already showed that. Advanced algorithm, Is that true, actually? Because a lot of IT vendors nowadays saying that they have the most advanced algorithm and mathematics calculated from the lab. But is that true? So let me take a simple analogy on this. Let's say AI is a car, right? The car here, high-tech sports car with modern design, and then there's the engine, right? So most of the R&D costs for the car manufacturer will be in the engine. So we have the most advanced engine, and with the design great efficiency, and the engine to the car is like algorithm to the AI. But is that sufficient? Is advanced engine enough to run the car fast? No, right? So you need power, you need energy, you need electricity, you need fuel. So what is the fuel for AI? So it's actually data. You have to have enough data in order for you to run robust AI. So thank you. Maybe it's much easier. Right, data. And data is not only the operation data that you have, but the historical data that you kept. So it's not only the data from your enterprise, but the data from all your partners or along the supply chain, downstream, upstream, and you need to have a single source of truth, right? Because data provided from your customers, from your supplier, might be different, right? So without the clean data and high quality of data, don't invest in AI. I don't care like what the AI vendors is pushing you. Get the data ready first. Okay, so that's enough for the AI 101 part. And I think next I'm going to jump a little more specific into supply chain, the global supply chain. So if we look at what actually brings the challenges into the supply chain, it didn't happen because of COVID. Actually, it happens because of the transformation of the industry. If you look at the picture on the left-hand side, that's a picture of Ford Motor back in 1947, where everything is kept in the plant. The manufacturers is owning the entire product life cycle in the plant. While now, the industry has transformed to the concept of global manufacturing with thousands of suppliers and thousands of distributors, like our customers Dell here. So all these changes and transformation of the industry actually brings more complexity and more challenges to supply chain. Behind the scene, what happened is, so this is a very typical IT architecture. It's from some of the RFP document that we received from our customer, right? So we're shocked, right? There's so many siloed systems. They have a tier 1 ERP system in their headquarters in US. They have some tier 2 system in the regional office. They have another CRM for their distributors who kept the customer data. And too many integration points, right? There'll be vendors out there to connect those points, but it will be system A to B, system B to C, system A to C. It's very hard for anyone to have a platform to get a single source of truth, right? And when the volumes goes up, even though you have all the integration points there, it might be inaccurate, right? And it might be outdated when the data pass through. So what's the solution, right? Are we going to go back to the good old days to own the entire product life cycle? I don't think so, right? So if we see the long term, I think the world, the future to build a resilient supply chain will be more outsourcing, even more asset-light manufacturing, and more globalization as well. So how to make this right? What's the solution? I have 4 points here. I think the words are a bit small, so yeah, don't worry, I've prepared. So the key 4 elements here. Number 1, network. Yeah, as I've mentioned, the network of a multi-enterprise to connect along the supply chain. Number 2, data. Yeah, so data not only from your enterprise, but from everyone along the supply chain. Applications. So the applications, AI-enabled applications is the key to process the data that you have. And last but not least, single interface, right? So you can have different applications to resolve the immediate pains in specific areas. But for users to really understand the data and for everyone along your supply chain to really have the same understanding of the data, you need to have a unified user interface, right? So these 4 are the keys. Yep. So I think it's very obvious, right? New approaches for new complexity, and the new approaches will be AI. So what I did is I have summarized the top 3 complexities in the era. The number 1 is data complexity. So mentioned a lot of times, data. You need data to be clean. You need to have high quality data. Number 2, math complexity, right? So once the volume of data goes up, the algorithm that you require will be far beyond the human capacity. And number 3, decision-driven, data-driven decision-making process, right? Because the decision you make should not be siloed. It has to be cross-enterprise and cross-ecosystem, and it needs to be fast, nearly instant, especially for the e-commerce and last mile, right? Okay. So, yeah, here's come to the key topic of this deconstructing the AI, the term of AI in supply chain and cutting through all the marketing hype, right? What are we talking about with AI? What are the true AI that all the vendors here talk about? So there are basically 3 core capabilities, and not all AIs are created equal. Yep. So the first one, we call that process-driven automation. So to understand this better, it's like we can have robots to help automate the repeatable process and reduce human error. So a simple example in the supply chain will be during the procure-to-pay process, how you make the 4-way matching of your orders, your shipments, your receipts, and your payment invoices. So instead of doing that manually, you can do that with AI, so-called AI. That's number 1. Number 2, we have a mathematics-driven operations research, right? So in this part of AI, instead of yep. Okay. So in this type of AI, the AI will help you to make reasonable assumptions and with closed form equations. So the algorithm will already be there without the data input. For example, when you allocate a supply to a new demand with a set algorithm and equation, the AI could help you to match the supply and demand and to set target stock level, to have your minimum stock level to make sure your service, and set a maximum stock level to avoid waste. Right? You can do that through the AI. And the third type, you can see from the color. Yep, this is the true AI that we really need when we talk about AI and machine learning. That the more data you get, the better it goes, right? The AI will keep improving itself, and these are some samples, examples of this kind of AI. For example, you can use the point of sales data and your sentiment data to do more accurate forecast based on current realities, and you can improve your safety stock, without a defined algorithm. For example, any new items or new product comes, the AI will help you do the clustering and match that with the historical data. And the last one will be some predictable ETAs for some new routings that you newly established. I will show more examples later. So the key I'm trying to deliver in this slide is that not all AIs are created equal, but does it necessarily mean that the machine learning AI is superior to other two? I don't think so, right? Because it all depends what you want, what you need, what stage are you in, right? Do you have enough data to onboard the machine learning UI, machine learning AI, right? So as an AI buyer, you have to be clear, and you can challenge your AI vendors when you're selecting the AI to make sure that they don't charge you something and they don't force you to buy something that you can't utilize, right? If you don't have enough data. To make it simple, the slide here actually shows from bottom to up. I won't go to details, but basically from bottom to up, more machine will be involved in the entire process. And the ultimate goal is to reach to the top one, where we have decision automation, meaning 100% of the process are managed by the machine. And the beauty of this is once we reach that 100% of machine, it can learn and improve by itself. Right? So again, you have to be clear on which stage you are, what solutions you're looking for. It's not necessarily saying that you have to, achieve that 100% automation. So now we have the three levels, right? The first, automation process-driven, the second, mathematics-driven, and the third, data-driven machine learning. So the true AI will be the third one. And in the third one, we have further categorized into three types, right? And the first type is what we call supervised learning. So in this type of AI, you need to give the AI the input, the output, and AI will set up its algorithm. A simple example will be if you give thousands of pictures of a chart, different size, different color, different model, and you tell the AI that it is a chart, right? So the second time, the next time you send him a picture, send the AI a picture of a chart, it will know and it will tell you that it is a chart, right? The second one, unsupervised AI. This means that you don't need necessarily to label that chart. For example, you're still sending the 1,000 pictures of chart to the AI, but you don't need to tell the AI it's a chart, right? It will analyze the patterns and associates of the data they receive, and the next time you send a chart, it won't necessarily know the name of chart, but it will categorize it into the previous 1,000 pictures of the chart, right? That's the second layer. The third layer is what we call reinforcement. So in this layer, there's no predefined input, there's no predefined output. And what AI can do is based on what we stand today, they will simulate the results for future events. And they could simulate possible combinations of the outcomes of certain events. So it could, based on what it predicts, it will then, with rewards and penalties that it receives, they keep improving itself. Yeah. So these are the three levels. And yeah, these are some real-life examples that link these to the last mile and e-commerce. Yeah, the first example, I think this is very relevant to e-commerce, where we have different colors here, 7 different colors showing 7 different demand signals. So the signals can be orders, sales orders, demand forecast. It can be your warehouse level and your storage inventory, right? So this is one of our customer who has 12,000 item locations. So if you think about the number of item locations they have, think about the 7 types of demand signals they receive. This will easily combine and contribute to over 1 million forecasts possible, right? So how to make sense of the data. And if the products from different categories, for example, having different shelf life, have different consumer behavior behind the consume of the product, the AI prediction will be very different, right? The forecast prediction will be very different. So we need an AI. And what AI can do here is the blue color here, what we call is demand sensing instead of the demand forecasting. So it could match the gap, it could fill the gap by at least 70–80%. And as a human planner, what we need to do is just to fill the smaller gap between the blue color and the black color part. So instead of planning everything to match the demand gap, you just need to focus on a little part. Yeah. So that's the first type of AI. Second one, unsupervised learning, right? As I mentioned before, that you don't need necessarily to label the inputs. So this could be used in predicting ETA. For example, if you have new routes, new customer, new lanes for the shipping, and you want to know the ETA, right? You don't have historical data. So what AI will do is will cluster the routings based on the origin ports and destination ports with similar routes, and the more data it gets, the more accurate it can predict. And with the AI, even the first time you're shipping something entire fresh new lanes, it can give a pretty accurate estimate and prediction on the ETA. Yep, the third type, reinforcement learning. So this is important, I think, in today's era, right? There will be a lot of events coming unexpected. For example, you will have a huge sales order coming in the e-commerce, when you have some special sales, and you might have faced a shortage of critical parts during the manufacturing process, right? So when the possible events occurs, what will happen, right? And what's the best course of action that you need to take? So AI could help you. AI could help you to simulate different combinations of decisions made across the entire application, right? A shortage of a key component may impact, other departments, your finance, your planning, your shipping. So, and different departments, as I showed earlier, using different applications, right? So, how to calculate the most desired outcome, across all the applications, AI could do it, right? And it could do it until the level that it show you what are the outcomes, and the user just needs to make the final decision, or it could just make the decision for you to make it fully automated. Yep. Okay. So that's all. So I hope it's not too much lecture. Yep, it's not a sales pitch, right? So some key takeaways for the AI buyers today. Number one, as I mentioned, multi-enterprise business network, right? You have to build the network with your upstream and downstream players or trading partners. And number two, do your due diligence with your AI vendor. Ask them, do they have a field-proven AI? Is that AI going to scale? And don't limit to your capacity nowadays. For example, you're doing hundreds of thousands shipments today, but you might be doing millions in next 10 years, right? And the AI vendor should prove that they have the capability to scale. And a full suite of planning and execution applications, AI embedded, and last but not least, a single operating platform. So only with a single platform across the department, people could understand the data. So that's all. Wrap up my session with two tips here. I will just read it. To provide maximum value, AI requires access to data from the whole supply chain. Otherwise, it is running partially behind. And business leaders are best served by seeking a vendor that meets their immediate needs, has the AI breadth and depth to provide assistance across all parts of the business, and creates a pathway for making cross-functional decisions. So that's all. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So does anybody have any questions based on the informative discussion that we've just, or the informative presentation we've just had? Any questions to ask, Martin? I had one. So do organizations need to now have data scientists and, I guess, coders in order to start taking advantage of AI?
Yep, that's a very good question. And I think not necessary, and the reason that we are here, the IT vendors are here to make sure that you don't need to invest any data scientists to understand the data. As I mentioned earlier, that the AI can understand and even make the final decisions. So until you are achieving that goal, think twice, right, before you even invest in AI. Otherwise, if it's just partially, if it just shows you the amount of data you have, then you need to have another investment in the scientists. Yeah, it's a good question.
Okay. Any questions? Yep, great.
Thanks. Hi there. Thanks for that. Yeah, just a quick one. So, in terms of AI, obviously, massively interesting topic. From your experience, do you have a view on where is there a cut-off point or a tipping point in terms of size, scale, complexity of an organisation where you can extract real value from this versus it just being a nice to have?
Yeah. So I think for organizations you need to have a goal, right? You need to have a goal for AI. As I mentioned earlier, all those challenges and complexities that is today and is going to come tomorrow. AI is no longer nice to have, and even it's a nice to have today, you need to have a very clear roadmap in the future, at which point you need to have AI, and start a chart, right? And before making any AI decisions, just approach more AI vendors, IT vendors, chart more models, and start to use part of that, maybe starting from a small portion of your business.
So you don't necessarily have to have a big business to do this, though, right?
You are right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So even small businesses can be quite complex that require AI problem solving.
Exactly. So I have different layers listed just now, right? Three layers of AI, and even in the machine learning, there's another 3 layers. So as I mentioned, there's no. It's not necessary that one is superior to other. It all depends on your current stage of the enterprise. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? No? In that case, thank you very much.